Hi there, and welcome to an exploration of compliance within Globalscape EFT. My name is Sean Holdstock and I'm one of the senior technical consultants here at Protocol. I've been working in the MFT market space for about 3 years now, and Globalscape EFT was the first solution that I learned and became certified in. Since then, I've assisted customers in architecture, auditing and automation design in Globalscape and many other MFT systems. I come from a background of networking and security with a focus on cloud migrations from on-prem to cloud platforms, and I've been working in the IT industry for about 10 years now. In my own time, I'm very interested in 3D printing, and I'll create things from artwork all the way to small little toys. Now, enough about me. Let's talk about what we're here for today. Today, we're going to talk about compliance. So what is compliance? Compliance refers to conforming to laws, regulations, guidelines, or standards that would be relevant to your industry or sector. In the MFT space, this is mainly focused around data security and data handling. Making sure a system is compliant to your specific standards can be a difficult task for any administrator, and implementing a system or even auditing it today can still be very difficult. So what we're going to look at today is some of the compliance standards that Globalscape EFT can address, and how some of the functionality within EFT itself can help you address specific compliance standards. What this will do is empower your administrators to be able to audit their systems, find any uncompliant configurations, and then change those to make them compliant. So, what kind of standards can EFT meet? So, just a couple of examples I have here for you. So we've got GDPR, which is obviously a big one, PCI-DSS, HIPAA, high-tech, Sarbanes-Oxley, and to name a couple of others, CCPA, FIPS 140-2, and DIA-CP, just to mention a couple. So mainly we're going to look at two compliances today. So one is GDPR and the other one is PCI-DSS. So we're going to look at how you can use the functionality within Globalscape EFT to help confirm if you're meeting these standards. Now, we can't talk about compliance without talking about data protection. Ransomware groups often target systems involved in supply chains, such as file servers, databases, and, in recent years, MFT solutions. Anything that has access to valuable business data is potentially a target. Breaches in 2023 and 2024 of multiple different solutions in the MFT market space by ransomware groups shook the industry and forced a previously discreet MFT solution right under the noses of C-suite employees. In several of these breaches, secure configurations by OT departments, such as configuration held within major regulatory standards, if they had been applied, could have potentially prevented the access to the systems. We need to consider other elements than just reporting when we think about compliance. Data protection, as mentioned, is one of the most important areas. For most standards, encryption at rest is an important factor. And within EFT itself, we can encrypt directories within our virtual file system, and we can also delete and scrub the data upon deletion to different data deletion standards. For data in transit, we're always going to advise that you look at secure protocols, such as HTTPS, SFTP, and FTPS, as an example. You're always going to make sure that you're reviewing the ciphers that you currently have activated to make sure that they are still currently secure and rated within the top security ratings you can for those cipher suites. Now, let's talk about GDPR. So when addressing GDPR, we need to look at this on a per site basis. The GDPR settings allow an administrator to confirm how their company addresses 26 of the relevant articles in GDPR to their MFT solution, and fortunately it has a very simple interface to interact with. Once you've completed the assessment settings, we can then run a report on command to generate a score-based value. This report will generate in a JSON format, so if you require this in a more easy to read, simpler to digest format, you might want to take a look and think about using the advanced workflow functionality within the product to convert that JSON output into a more desirable format that you want. Let's take a look at how we can generate this GDPR report for ourselves. So here we are logging into Globalscape EFT ourselves. Okay. Now, under our sites, I'm going to use my Sean-test site for today. We're going to go over to our central panel and go over to the web tab. Under that, we'll have our GDPR configuration area. For each of these options, you will be given a number of different categories that you can select from. In scope, out scope, for example. Some options will have additional configuration buttons that you can apply to see whether you're meeting those scopes for particular areas. Other areas, for example, where we're talking about encryption, we'll check if you've actually got a secure security key set up to encrypt files. Beyond that, we'll have other areas where you'll need to enter information in a text format, for example, such as this one here that explains that this is in fact a demo server. Once you're ready, we're going to go ahead and press the Run DPIA report button. This will generate a report that looks like this in a JSON format. So the way the scoring works here is we're aiming to have a score as close to 0 as possible. Okay? And for each article, you will be rated based on your current configuration for that site. The benefit of this is we can do this on a per site basis, so we can use that architectural segregation that EFT works very well with to separate maybe, for example, an area out from the others which needs to be GDPR compliant. Okay? This way we can assess configurations for more restrictive or less restrictive based on the target group we're looking to interface with. As I said earlier, it's in a JSON format, so you can see the curly braces there. And like I said, you could use an advanced workflow to then transcribe how it comes out. We can go back in, change any settings we need to, and run the report upon request. It's a very simple and easy tool to use, especially for administrators. And if you do have any questions or any concerns around this functionality, please add them into the live chat and we'll try and tackle them in the Q&A later on this afternoon. So now let's talk about PCI-DSS. When looking at PCI-DSS, the reporting functionality is done slightly differently. It's done on an entire system rather than a per site. Each site will be scored independently on a pass-fail rating, which gives administrators clear explanations on the reason why they might have failed a specific requirement. It's broken down into a number of different statuses. So failed, passed, you could also have warning, or you might have compensating factor. Okay? Administrators are then empowered to address those particular changes that they need to look at. And then once they've configured those changes, they can rerun the report and then they can obviously address those issues. So we're going to take a look at what that looks like in action. Something also to say about this tool we're about to see is even if PCI-DSS is not a framework that you need to be compliant in, because you don't handle any kind of payment card data, it's a really good functionality to use as a benchmark against your overall configuration itself. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up to localhost, we're going to sign in, okay, and then we're going to go over to the reports at the top. What this will allow us to do is run the PCI-DSS compliance report. Once you click onto this, it can take a few minutes depending on how many sites you've got. I obviously have quite a few, so in that it has more objects to review and assess before it can render its report. The report it renders will come out in a PDF format, okay? This is roughly what the format looks like. So as you can see, all of my sites are on the left-hand side, and I can skip specifically to a site if there's only one I'm worried about, or I can review from the top to the bottom, which is what we're going to do in a second. So if we go all the way up to the top, what we can see is, sorry about this, is it will tell me exactly what the reasoning is for its particular status. So in this, I've got a compensating control. So in that, it's going to tell me exactly why it is. And for this, it's because I'm using single sign-on. Okay. So if we keep going up, right to the top, we can go over some of the other ones. So your past ones, it will tell you a positive message like using strong SSL. If it's a warning, it'll direct me exactly to the reason why. So in this case, I don't have users being disabled after 90 days of inactivity. But I can now use this as a guide to help me then reconfigure my system and go back and make any changes I need to do to then rerun the report and look to try and get that passing or compensated control score. This report can be run ad hoc as often as you want, okay, just by following the steps we looked at earlier. So, just to recap, very simple, we log in, as you would, make sure you're an administrator, up to reports, and then what we're going to do, run PCI-DSS compliance. Now, to utilize the things I've looked at today, there are some modular requirements. So you will need the regulatory compliance module and you'll need the auditing and reporting module. To confirm if you've already got those modules, you can check by signing in as the admin console, as we previously did a second ago, but instead going up to the help section. Under help, you'll see all of your modules that are activated grayed out. You won't be able to select them. If there's any modules that are highlighted in bold and you're able to click onto them and interface with them, that indicates that those modules have not been activated. If this is an area or something you would like to progress further with and you don't have those modules, it's as simple as reaching out to myself, for example, or to your account manager, and we can start you on that journey to going towards acquiring those modules. One of the areas I'd like to talk about just for a minute is a recent real world scenario. So we had a customer who wanted a review of their MFT system. For obvious reasons, I can't say who that was. Wanted a review of their EFT system, and upon our audit that we conducted, we realized that actually they had mixed amounts of data within their EFT site, which included card holding data and non-card holding data. Now, what we did to approach this is we looked into if they had the modules. They didn't, so we got them trial licenses for the modules so we could explain how it works and show them the relevance of it. We then went on to actually segregate that data out. So we created a brand new site, which by creating that new site gave me all of the setup wizard options to be able to then set this to be a more secure site, which is more PCI-DSS focused. Okay. Then we go through with the site build, we migrate over the event rules, any user accounts that we need to, okay, and then we segregated it by adding another network interface card to that virtual machine, so we could actually completely segregate the data from in to out. This then meant when we were running reports, we were getting passes across the board for the site that was dedicated for handling any kind of card information. This was a fantastic result for them, and I believe could be a fantastic result for you as well if you have any kind of requirements like that. Thank you very much for listening today, and I hope that I've shown you some useful information. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask them in the live chat. Like I said earlier, we'll talk about them in the Q&A, or if you prefer, you're more than welcome to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to discuss any of the content of this presentations with you, or any kind of future work involving Globalscape EFT that you'd like to do. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks. Bye-bye.